Tony Blair was the longest-serving Labour Party member to serve as Prime Minister in the UK, holding office for a decade. And some of the stresses that come with being in that position are the personal and sometimes vicious attacks from the public and media. I asked Mr. Blair how he dealt with the hits that he took.
I think anyone who says that it doesn't affect you, you'd have to be a little inhuman. But you do learn to live with it in a way. Frankly, there are days when you get up and you decide that the papers may be lying on the kitchen table, but you're not going to have a look at them. It's also that I think the one thing we should never forget, and I certainly never forget this, I mean, I am very privileged. You know, it was an enormous privilege to be Prime Minister of a country like Britain for 10 years, and I lead an exciting life. And now, you know, working in the Middle East peace process and with my religious faith foundation and so on, I get up every morning and I feel a sense of motive and purpose. And I think if that's on one side of the scale, and that's a big thing, you know, on the other side of the scale, you know, people have a go. So,
you mentioned faith. The Tony Blair Faith Foundation is a very important part of what you're a part of now. There was a special moment in 2007, a conversion to Catholicism, very powerful spiritual experience for you. What were the steps that led to this part of your life becoming a forefront of who Tony Blair is?
Well, for me, my faith has obviously been the single most important thing in my life throughout, and that's the way it is. My conversion to Catholicism really came about in part because I'd been my wife is a Catholic, my children brought up as Catholics, we've been going to church, to Mass, for 25 years. So for me it was a very, it felt very much like coming home. When I'm out here in Jerusalem, it's fascinating though, because you also see the Jewish and the Muslim influence very strongly, and the whole purpose of my foundation has been to say, if the modern world is to work, people of different faiths have got to learn to understand and respect each other. And sometimes people say, oh, these problems aren't really religious. But for many of the people involved in those conflicts, they believe it is religious. So, you know, for me, the journey into the Catholic Church was a very personal one to do with my family, but the belief in the power of religious faith and its importance in the world is central to my new life.
I'm sure you are aware that you are immensely popular in the United States, and it's not for so much a particular point of view, but you took a stand with America right after 9/11. People appreciated that. But then there was a new appreciation, because even in the face of what really was a change in the Labour Party in Britain, and to some degree in the Democratic Party in America, you remained steadfast in your view that the decision to topple the regime of Saddam Hussein was the right one. And that sense of resolve brought you many admirers. Do you sense that? Do you get an understanding of that appreciation that you get on the other side of the pond? Does that come through?
Well, Americans are generous people, you know, and obviously I love being in the States. But the thing, I mean, look, I don't know about that so much, but the thing I think that America should never lose, and it's a really interesting thing, because out here, when you're dealing with this Israeli-Palestinian issue, is very complicated. And sometimes Palestinians say to me, what do we need to do? And I say, and it's what I find in the US and what I like about the US and what you must never ever lose, is that sense of optimism and that sense of the human spirit being about the possibility, not about the risks and the dangers and the setbacks and the grievances of life, but about the possibility that life holds. And that's the thing that actually distinguishes a nation or a people that's on their way up from one that's on their way down. And you should never lose that, and it's one of the reasons why I like being in the US and being around Americans, is that, you know, for whatever the issues, and sometimes you guys don't understand us and we don't understand you, but that optimism and that sort of exuberance of the human spirit, it's a great thing.
My thanks to former Prime Minister of Great Britain, Tony Blair, a remarkable and fascinating individual.